The laughter started before he reached the doors. Not loud at first. Just enough to notice. Enough to feel wrong. Kaelen Reed slowed without realizing it. The valet stand was crowded. Black cars pulling in. Heels clicking. Someone dropped a glass and cursed under their breath. Phones were already out. Not pointed at him yet. Just hovering. Waiting. Then he heard her voice. He didn't catch the full sentence. He didn't need to. The tone did the damage. Bright. Casual. Amused. Like she was telling a story she'd rehearsed for the right audience. People laughed again. Louder this time. Someone turned to look at him. Someone else smirked. A woman near the entrance leaned toward her friend and whispered, covering her mouth like that helped. Kaelen stopped. Not dramatically. Just enough that the valet noticed and hesitated. Rain started falling. Light at first. A few drops on the pavement. On his jacket. On his face. He stood there for half a second longer than a man should. Then he stepped back. He didn't argue. Didn't interrupt. Didn't raise his voice or demand respect. He turned away from the lights and the glass doors and walked down the sidewalk, straight into the rain, like that was always the plan. Behind him, the laughter followed. Then phones. Someone had already hit record. By the time he reached the corner, the story had already left the building without him. The video didn't take long to spread. A clip. Cropped tight. Genevieve MacQuoid smiling, glass in hand, saying just enough to poison the room. Saying it like a joke. Saying it like a fact everyone should already know. People filled in the rest themselves. Kaelen sat in his car with the engine off. The streetlight flickered above the windshield. His phone buzzed once. Then again. Then stopped. He turned it face down without checking. Inside the venue, Genevieve was still laughing. Still performing. Still enjoying the space she'd created where he no longer existed as a person. Just a punchline. A weakness. Something to step over. She believed the story was finished. She believed he would disappear quietly. The next morning, the house was too quiet. Not empty. Just careful. Kaelen pulled into the driveway and stayed in the car longer than necessary. The engine ticked as it cooled. Inside, movement. Dishes. A chair scraping the floor. Two teenage boys sat at the kitchen table. Same jaw. Same eyes. One chewing too fast. The other scrolling on his phone, not looking up until the door closed behind him. They froze when they saw his face. Kaelen didn't speak right away. He set his keys down. Took off his jacket. The rain had soaked through the shoulders. One of the boys stood halfway, unsure if he should move closer or stay back. This was the part Kaelen had been avoiding for years. Not because he didn't love them. Because loving them meant keeping them hidden. He looked at them and understood something he hadn't the night before. The lie was no longer contained. Someone had dragged it into the open. And now it would keep moving, whether he wanted it to or not. Outside, a car passed slowly. Too slowly. Kaelen closed his eyes for a brief moment, then opened them again. The damage had already started. And whatever came next was going to cost more than silence ever did. The video didn't stop at the laugh. It cut just after it. Right where her smile settled into something confident. Something finished. By morning, the clip had been reposted with captions that didn't need explaining. People arguing in comments about a man they'd never met. Some laughing. Some dissecting his posture. His silence. His walk into the rain. Everyone had an opinion. No one asked if it was true. Kaelen watched the numbers climb without touching the screen. He didn't flinch when his phone vibrated again. He already knew what it would be. A message from a colleague pretending to check in. A friend asking if he was okay without waiting for an answer. A silence from people who had always been loud around him. Inside the house, the boys argued quietly over cereal. Not really arguing. Just trying to sound normal. Kaelen stood in the hallway and listened. They didn't know yet. Not fully. They knew something was wrong. Teenagers always know that much. But they didn't know how big the wrong was. or how long it had been waiting. He had promised himself this day wouldn't come. He had promised their grandmother it wouldn't either. 15 years earlier, he had made a decision that solved one problem and created another. He'd chosen distance over chaos. Silence over explanation. He told himself it was temporary. That there would be a better time. There was never a better time. Genevieve slept well that night. She woke up satisfied. Not relieved. Satisfied. There was a difference. Her phone was already full. Messages from donors. Investors. Friends congratulating her on her honesty. One voice note played twice. Someone laughing, saying it was brutal but deserved. She didn't respond right away. Let it breathe. Let the story grow legs. She showered slowly. Chose her outfit carefully. Neutral. Unbothered. The look of a woman who had already moved on. She assumed Kaelen would stay quiet. He always did. By afternoon, something shifted. It wasn't obvious at first. Just small delays. A call that didn't go through. A meeting rescheduled without explanation. Someone she knew well pretending not to see her in a hallway. Genevieve blamed timing. Then jealousy. Then incompetence. She didn't consider fear. Kaelen picked the boys up from school himself. He hadn't done that in weeks. Work had always been the excuse. That day, he turned his phone off and drove. The younger one asked if everything was okay. The older one didn't ask anything at all. They both looked at him too much. Kaelen realized then that the lie wasn't just about him anymore. It was about them. About what people would say once they were seen. About the way rumors stick to faces. That was the moment the choice stopped being theoretical. The gala footage kept circulating. Then something else appeared. A photo. Grainy. Old. 2 boys standing beside a woman outside a hospital. A man's arm visible in the corner. Same wristwatch Kaelen still wore. People noticed the resemblance before they noticed the context. The comments changed tone. Questions replaced jokes. Genevieve saw it while stepping out of a car. She stopped walking. Read. Refreshed. Read again. The certainty she'd been wearing since the night before cracked. Just slightly. Enough to let something colder in. She told herself it didn't matter. Then she called someone. The call went unanswered. Some stories don't begin when you think they do. They begin when silence stops working. Stay with it. This is one of those stories people don't forget quietly. The questions started small. Not accusations. Just confusion. People who knew Kaelen but didn't know everything. People who had laughed but now weren't sure if they should have. Someone sent Genevieve a screenshot. Then another. Then a thread she hadn't seen yet. The photo kept reappearing. Different captions. Different angles of interpretation. She deleted nothing. That would look like panic. Instead, she posted a photo of herself at brunch. Smiling. Present. The message was clear, unbothered. But her hands shook when she set the phone down. The waiter refilled her mimosa without asking. She didn't touch it. Just stared at the glass like it had personally offended her. Across the table, her publicist scrolled through her own phone with the kind of focus that meant bad news was getting worse. Genevieve waited. The publicist looked up. Set the phone face down. That was never good. The photo was being picked up by larger outlets. Not gossip sites. Actual news. The kind with editorial standards and fact-checkers who didn't care about feelings. They weren't saying anything yet. Just asking questions. Wondering who the boys were. Wondering why no one had known about them. Wondering if the timeline matched the marriage. Genevieve felt her jaw tighten. She told her publicist to kill it. The publicist would try. But her tone suggested trying wouldn't be enough. Then came something worse. Someone had started a forum thread. Anonymous. Detailed. Claiming to have gone to school with Kaelen years ago. Claiming to remember when he became a father at 16. Claiming his mother took the boys in to protect his future. The publicist didn't know if it was credible. But credible didn't matter. Once something spread, truth became negotiable. Genevieve stood. Threw cash on the table. Left without saying goodbye. Outside, the sunlight felt aggressive. She put on sunglasses that cost more than most people's rent and walked 3 blocks before realizing she had nowhere to go. Her phone buzzed. A text from a board member. Vague. Polite. Asking if they could talk soon about messaging strategy. She didn't respond. Another buzz. A colleague she'd worked with for years. Wondering if the rumors were true. Wondering if Genevieve had known. She turned her phone off. Then turned it back on. Ignoring it felt worse than watching it. Kaelen sat with his mother in her kitchen while the twins did homework upstairs. The television played low. Neither of them watched it. She had kept them safe for 15 years. Raised them when he couldn't. Protected them from a world that asked too many questions too quickly. She had never asked him to hide them. But she had never asked him to expose them either. Now he was about to do exactly that. She didn't try to stop him. She just looked at him the way mothers do when they know the cost and can't pay it for you. Kaelen told her he didn't have a choice anymore. Everyone has a choice, she reminded him. Genevieve made hers first, he countered. His mother stood and poured more coffee neither of them wanted. She didn't argue after that. She just asked if he was ready for what came next. He wasn't. But ready didn't matter anymore. Did the boys know what he was planning? Not yet. Was he going to tell them? Eventually. When was eventually? He didn't answer. His mother sat back down. The chair creaked under her weight. She had lived in this house for 30 years. Raised Kaelen here. Raised his sons here too when he couldn't. The walls were full of photos no one outside the family had ever seen. The boys were strong, she reminded him. He knew that. But they were also 15. And 15-year-olds didn't always recover from being turned into news. Kaelen stared at his coffee. His mother reached across the table and put her hand over his. Her skin was warm. Worn. Familiar. Be sure, she told him. Kaelen nodded. But he didn't look sure. Upstairs, one of the twins laughed at something on his phone. The sound traveled down through the floorboards. Light. Unaware. Kaelen's mother pulled her hand back. Once he did this, there was no taking it back. The boys would be visible forever. Cameras didn't forget faces. Kaelen knew that too. Had he thought about what happens after? After the moment. After the photo. After people stopped caring? No, he admitted. He should, she told him. Genevieve's new relationship moved fast. Charles Dalarosa. Senior executive. Recently divorced. Well-liked. Well-connected. The kind of man who made her look forward-thinking instead of desperate. They were photographed twice in 1 week. Once at a charity dinner. Once leaving a restaurant most people couldn't afford. The press called it a rebound. Genevieve called it a realignment. Charles called it promising. He had watched the gala video like everyone else. Told Genevieve he admired her honesty. That she deserved better than what she'd settled for. That Kaelen had wasted her time. She believed him because she wanted to. But Charles was careful. He didn't make promises. Didn't overcommit. He kept 1 foot in and 1 foot ready. That should have told her something. They met for lunch 3 days after the photo started circulating. Charles arrived late. Not dramatically late. Just late enough to make her wait. Genevieve ordered wine she didn't drink and checked her phone twice before he sat down. He kissed her cheek. Smiled. Asked how she was holding up. Fine, she told him. Good, he responded. Then he ordered salmon and didn't mention Kaelen for the entire meal. Genevieve noticed. She tried to bring it up casually. Mentioned the photo. Laughed it off as people inventing drama where there wasn't any. Charles nodded. People loved a mystery, he offered. She waited for him to ask more. He didn't. He talked about a merger instead. About quarterly projections. About a trip to Denver he had planned for the following month. Genevieve smiled and nodded and felt something tighten in her chest. When the check came, Charles paid without looking at it. He'd call soon, he assured her. She'd like that, she responded. He kissed her cheek again and left first. Genevieve sat alone at the table for another 10 minutes. The waiter cleared his plate and asked if she needed anything else. No, she replied. But she didn't move. She pulled out her phone. Scrolled through the comments under the photo again. Someone had made a side-by-side comparison. Kaelen at 20. The boys now. The resemblance was undeniable. Someone else had found his mother's Facebook. Old posts. Photos from years ago. Birthday parties. School events. 2 boys who looked like Kaelen standing beside an older woman who looked proud. Genevieve's stomach turned. She clicked on a new article. This one had a timeline. Kaelen's age when the boys were born. The marriage. The divorce. The gala. The math worked. All of it worked. She closed the browser and sat staring at her reflection in the black screen. Kaelen took the twins to dinner that night. Nothing fancy. A diner they used to go to when they were younger. Booths with cracked vinyl. Laminated menus that hadn't changed in a decade. The twins ordered quickly. Pancakes for one. Burger and fries for the other. Kaelen ordered coffee and didn't touch it. They ate quietly for a while. The kind of quiet that wasn't uncomfortable but wasn't quite normal either. Was something wrong? One of them asked. No, Kaelen replied. That was a lie, the other one countered. Kaelen looked at him. The kid didn't blink. Just waited. Kaelen set his mug down. Thought about how to say it. Decided there wasn't a good way. There was an event coming up. Something public. Something important. Did they have to go? Yes. Why? Because people needed to see them. What did that mean? The first one frowned. Kaelen explained it slowly. Carefully. Told them about the gala. About what Genevieve had done. About the video. About the way people saw him now. The only way to fix it was to stop hiding. One of the twins leaned back in the booth. Crossed his arms. Was this about revenge? No, Kaelen insisted. The boy didn't look convinced. Kaelen tried again. This wasn't about hurting Genevieve. This was about making the truth louder than the lie. Were people going to be mean? The other twin asked. Probably, Kaelen admitted. The boy looked down at his food. Didn't eat. What happened if they refused? The first one asked. They could refuse. He wouldn't force them. This was their choice too. The boy thought about it. Then asked what happened to Kaelen if they didn't go. He'd figure it out, Kaelen offered. The boy shook his head. That wasn't an answer. Kaelen didn't have a better one. They sat in silence for a while. The diner hummed around them. Someone dropped a plate in the kitchen. A couple argued quietly in the booth behind them. Finally, one of them agreed. Okay. The other looked at his brother. Then at Kaelen. Then nodded too. Kaelen felt something break open in his chest. He thanked them. Don't thank us yet, one of them warned. What were they supposed to wear? The other asked. Kaelen almost laughed. Almost. Something nice. Something that fit. They nodded. Then one of them asked if their grandmother knew. She did, Kaelen confirmed. Was she okay with it? No. But she understood. The twins looked at each other. Some silent exchange Kaelen couldn't read. Then they went back to eating. Like they'd just agreed to something ordinary. Like they hadn't just agreed to let the world see them. Genevieve's publicist called her at 9 that night. She answered on the second ring. The publicist didn't start with pleasantries. They had a problem. What kind? The kind that didn't go away by ignoring it. Someone had found records. Birth certificates. Old social media posts from Kaelen's mother. Nothing definitive. But enough to make the photo look less like coincidence and more like confirmation. Genevieve felt her stomach drop. Had anyone published it yet? Not yet. But they would. It was only a matter of time. What was she supposed to do? The publicist didn't know. This was outside normal crisis management. The usual strategies didn't apply when the truth was working against you. Genevieve hung up without saying goodbye. She poured herself a drink. Then another. Then sat on her couch in the dark and stared at nothing. Her phone buzzed. A text from Charles. Short. Polite. Needed to reschedule their plans for the weekend. Something about work. Something about timing. Genevieve read it twice. She didn't respond. She knew what reschedule meant. Distance. Hedging. He'd already decided she might not be worth the risk. She threw her phone across the room. It hit the wall and clattered to the floor. The screen didn't crack. She almost wished it had. Then it buzzed again. She walked over. Picked it up. An email. From a magazine. Apologizing for the late notice, but they needed to pull her profile. Editorial decision. Nothing personal. Genevieve read it 3 times. Nothing personal. She laughed. It sounded wrong in the empty room. Another email came in. A board member. Formal. Cold. Requesting a meeting to discuss recent developments and their potential impact on organizational reputation. Genevieve set the phone down gently this time. She poured another drink. Wondered how many it would take before she stopped feeling anything. Decided she didn't want to find out. She dumped the rest down the sink and went to bed. Sleep didn't come. She lay in the dark and listened to the buildings settle around her. Pipes groaning. Someone's television through the wall. The hum of the city outside. She thought about calling Kaelen. Demanding answers. Demanding he fix this. But what would she even say? That he'd lied? He had. But so had she. At least his lie protected someone. Hers had just destroyed. The MacQuoid Group anniversary brunch was planned months in advance. Investors. Press. Executives. The kind of event where deals happened between courses and reputations were quietly measured. Genevieve had been looking forward to it. A chance to be seen. To remind people she was still relevant. Still powerful. Still worth paying attention to. She had been asked to say a few words. Brief remarks about vision and growth. She practiced in the car on the way over. Her voice sounded steady. That was good. She arrived early. Hair perfect. Dress elegant but not excessive. The kind of outfit that communicated confidence without trying too hard. The room filled slowly. Champagne. Handshakes. Laughter that sounded expensive. Genevieve worked the room like she always did. Smiled at the right people. Laughed at jokes that weren't funny. Made herself visible without being obvious. A board member asked how she was doing. Great, she told him. Good to hear, he responded. His tone suggested he didn't believe her. Genevieve moved on. She spoke to an investor she'd been courting for months. He was polite. Attentive. But his eyes kept drifting toward the door. Was he expecting someone? No, he assured her. But he didn't look at her when he responded. Genevieve felt the first thread of unease pull tight. Someone else approached. A woman she'd worked with on 3 different initiatives. They'd been friendly once. Not close but warm. The woman's smile was different now. Tighter. Performance instead of reflex. Had Genevieve seen the latest round of speculation online? She hadn't been paying attention, Genevieve replied. Probably wise, the woman offered. Then she excused herself to refill a glass that was still half full. Genevieve watched her go. Felt the room shift around her in ways she couldn't name. Then the doors opened again. Kaelen walked in. Not alone. 2 boys. Teenage. Tall enough to not be mistaken for children. Dressed simply but cleanly. Button-down shirts. Dark pants. Shoes that looked new. They walked beside him. Not holding hands. Just present. The room didn't gasp. It went quiet in a different way. The kind of quiet that happens when understanding arrives faster than sound. Genevieve was mid-sentence when she saw them. Her smile stayed in place for 2 seconds longer than it should have. Then it didn't. Her champagne glass tilted. Just slightly. Enough that liquid touched the rim but didn't spill. Someone dropped a fork. Another person reached for their phone and stopped halfway. A photographer turned slightly. Instinct overriding confusion. Kaelen didn't speak. He didn't need to. The twins looked exactly like him. Same eyes. Same bone structure. Same unreadable expression that made people nervous without knowing why. There was no introduction. No explanation. No speech. Just presence. 3 people standing together in a room full of strangers who suddenly had to rethink everything they thought they knew. Genevieve's face went pale. Then red. Then carefully blank. She didn't move. Didn't approach. Didn't demand answers in front of cameras. She stood there while the room rearranged itself around her. Charles was standing 6 feet away. He looked at the twins. Then at Kaelen. Then at Genevieve. His expression shifted. Not dramatically. Just enough. He set his glass down and walked toward the bar without saying anything. Genevieve noticed. Of course she noticed. The whispers started almost immediately. Not loud. Not cruel. Just confused. Curious. Recalculating. A woman in a red dress leaned toward her husband and whispered something behind her hand. An executive Genevieve had worked with for years stared openly. Then pulled out his phone. Were those Kaelen's sons? Someone wondered aloud. They had to be, someone else confirmed. A third person was already searching. Looking for the old photo. Looking for proof. Looking for anything that explained what they were seeing. Genevieve turned and walked toward the hallway. Her heels clicked too loud on the marble floor. No one followed her. She pushed through a side door and found herself in a narrow corridor that smelled like cleaning solution and overpriced flowers. Her hands were shaking. She pressed them flat against the wall and closed her eyes. Tried to breathe. Couldn't. Her publicist found her 2 minutes later. The woman didn't speak. Just stood there with her phone in her hand and an expression that looked like someone had died. What happened? Genevieve managed. The photo was everywhere. Someone had taken a picture of Kaelen and the twins walking in. Already online. Already shared. Already building momentum. Could they stop it? The publicist laughed. It wasn't a happy sound. No. They couldn't stop it. Because this time it wasn't a rumor or a blurry photo or anonymous speculation. This time it was real. And real didn't disappear just because you wanted it to. Genevieve felt her knees weaken. She sat down on a bench that probably cost more than most people's cars. Her publicist sat beside her. Neither of them spoke. From the other room, someone started clinking a glass. A speech was beginning. Genevieve was supposed to be giving it. She didn't move. Did she want to leave? The publicist asked gently. No, Genevieve responded. Was she sure? Genevieve didn't answer. Because she wasn't sure. She wasn't sure of anything anymore. The publicist's phone buzzed. She looked at it. Her face went even paler. She showed Genevieve the screen. A news alert. Major outlet. Headline asking if MacQuoid Group executive's ex-husband had been hiding a family for 15 years. Subheadline wondering what else Genevieve MacQuoid might have gotten wrong. Genevieve read it twice. Then handed the phone back. She stood. Smoothed her dress. Fixed her hair in the reflection of a framed painting on the wall. What was she doing? The publicist asked. Going back in, Genevieve replied. That was a bad idea, the publicist warned. Genevieve didn't care. She pushed back through the door. The room turned to look at her. Not everyone, but enough. She walked to her seat. Sat down. Picked up her champagne glass and drank the rest in one swallow. Across the room, Kaelen and the twins sat quietly. Not watching her. Not performing. Just existing. That was worse than any accusation. Kaelen stayed exactly where he was. Could they sit down? One of the twins asked quietly. Kaelen nodded. They moved toward a table in the back. Away from the center. Away from the cameras. People watched them walk. Every step tracked. Every movement noted. The twins kept their heads steady. Not defiant. Not ashamed. just present. Kaelen stayed between them. They sat. A waiter appeared immediately. What did they want? Water, Kaelen requested. The twins ordered nothing. The waiter left. Everyone was staring. One of the twins whispered. Kaelen knew. Could they leave yet? The other asked. Not yet, Kaelen replied. The boy sank lower in his chair. Across the room, a board member approached. Older man. Silver hair. Expensive suit. The kind of person who was used to getting answers. He stopped at their table. Did Kaelen have a moment? He did. The man looked at the twins. Then back at Kaelen. Was there something the board should know? There wasn't, Kaelen replied. The man's eyes narrowed. Was Kaelen sure about that? He was. The man waited. Like he expected more. Like silence was a confession. Kaelen didn't give him anything. Finally, the man nodded. They'd talk later, he informed Kaelen. That would be fine, Kaelen agreed. The man walked away. Who was that? One of the twins asked. Someone who used to matter, Kaelen replied. The boy almost smiled. The other one pulled out his phone. Looked at it. Put it away quickly. What was wrong? Kaelen asked. Nothing, the boy deflected. Kaelen asked again. People from school were texting. Asking questions. Sending screenshots. What kind of screenshots? The boy didn't answer. Kaelen didn't push. He already knew. Genevieve returned to the main room 15 minutes later. She had fixed her makeup. Straightened her dress. Put the smile back on. But something was different. People noticed. They didn't approach her the way they had before. Didn't seek her out. Didn't gravitate toward her orbit. They watched. From a distance. Like she was something breakable that might shatter if touched. She tried to resume. Tried to make the moment small. But the room had already moved on. Conversations shifted when she got close. Eyes slid away when she looked up. Someone she'd known for years suddenly remembered an urgent phone call. Genevieve felt herself becoming invisible. Not ignored. Worse. Acknowledged and then dismissed. She found Charles near the windows. He was talking to someone she didn't recognize. Laughing at something that probably wasn't funny. She touched his arm. He turned. Smiled. The smile didn't reach his eyes. He excused himself from the other conversation. Could they talk? Genevieve asked. Charles checked his watch. He actually had to leave soon. Something about a meeting he'd forgotten. Had he seen Kaelen? He had. She waited. He didn't elaborate. What did he think? He didn't know what to think. It was complicated. Maybe they should talk about it later, when things were less public. Genevieve felt something cold settle in her stomach. Was he breaking up with her? Charles looked uncomfortable. He wasn't breaking up with her. They were just seeing each other casually anyway. Maybe casual needed to stay casual for a while. What did that mean? He needed space. How much space? He didn't know. Then he kissed her cheek and left. Genevieve stood alone near the windows and watched him go. Someone walked past and offered condolences. Not about Charles. About everything. Genevieve didn't respond. She turned back toward the room. Saw Kaelen and the twins still sitting quietly. Not celebrating. Not gloating. Just waiting. For what, she didn't know. Maybe nothing. Maybe they'd already won just by showing up. By the time dessert was served, half the room had seen the photo online. The other half heard about it from the first half. Kaelen's table stayed quiet. The twins ate bread rolls and pretended not to notice the stares. Kaelen didn't eat anything. A reporter approached. Young woman. Nervous but determined. Could she ask a question? No, Kaelen replied. She asked anyway. Were the boys his sons? Kaelen didn't answer. How long had he been a father? Leave, Kaelen told her firmly. Did Genevieve know? One of the twins stood up. Go away, he told the reporter directly. She looked startled. Apologized. Backed away. The boy sat back down. Kaelen put a hand on his shoulder. The The boy didn't shrug it off. Was it always going to be like this? The other twin asked. Kaelen didn't know. That wasn't helpful, the boy noted. It was honest, Kaelen offered. The boy nodded. Guessed that was something. Genevieve left before the speeches ended. She didn't say goodbye. Didn't thank the hosts. Just walked out through a side exit and got into her car. Where to? Her driver asked. Home, she replied. Then changed her mind. Anywhere else. They drove for an hour. Genevieve stared out the window and watched the city slide past. Her phone buzzed constantly. She turned it off. When they finally stopped, she realized she didn't recognize the neighborhood. Take her home after all, she told the driver. By the time she walked through her front door, 3 more people had cancelled plans with her. One was a friend. One was a business partner. One was someone she'd thought would never leave. She poured wine and didn't bother with a glass. Just drank from the bottle and sat on her kitchen floor. Wondered when everything had gone so wrong. Wondered if it had been wrong all along and she just hadn't noticed. Wondered if Kaelen had been planning this the whole time. Wondered if he'd laughed when she humiliated him. Wondered if he was laughing now. The next day, articles appeared. Not hit pieces. Just questions. Who were the boys? Why had no one known about them? What did this mean for the narrative Genevieve had built? Timelines were constructed. Photos were analyzed. People who knew Kaelen were interviewed. Most offered the same observation. He'd always been private. Quiet. The kind of person who didn't share unless he had to. No one called him deceptive. They just called him careful. Genevieve read every article. Every comment. Every post. She watched her version of events dissolve in real time. No one called her a liar. Not directly. They just stopped calling her honest. Invitations slowed. Calls went unreturned. Meetings were rescheduled indefinitely. A donor she'd worked with for years sent a polite email. Reallocating resources. A board position she'd been promised went to someone else. A magazine profile was quietly cancelled. Genevieve tried to explain. Called people. Left messages. Sent emails that went unanswered. Tried to reframe the gala moment as a misunderstanding taken out of context. But no one wanted the explanation. They wanted distance. Because proximity to uncertainty was dangerous. And Genevieve had become uncertain. She posted once. A carefully worded statement about complexity and privacy and the challenges of public life. It got torn apart in the comments. People called her calculated. Called her cold. Called her a liar who got caught. She deleted it within an hour. That made it worse. Screenshots circulated. People accused her of trying to rewrite history. Genevieve stopped posting entirely. Charles stopped responding entirely. No texts. No calls. No awkward breakup conversation. Just silence. Genevieve drove past his building one night. Told herself she was just in the neighborhood. She wasn't. His lights were on. She saw him through the window. With someone else. A woman she didn't recognize. Genevieve sat in her car and watched until the lights went off. Then she drove home and didn't cry. Crying would mean she'd lost something that mattered. She told herself it didn't matter. But her hands shook on the steering wheel. And she had to pull over twice because she couldn't see the road. Kaelen didn't speak to the press. Didn't release a statement. Didn't defend himself. Didn't correct the record. He just lived his life with 2 boys who were no longer hidden. It cost him more than anyone saw. The twins were recognized at school. Not violently. Not even meanly. Just constantly. Stares in hallways. Whispers in classrooms. Questions they didn't know how to answer. One of them stopped eating lunch in the cafeteria. Started spending the period in the library instead. The other got into a fight. Not a bad one. Just pushing. Raised voices. Someone had made a comment about their father. The boy didn't share what the comment was. Kaelen didn't ask. He just picked him up from the principal's office and drove home in silence. That night, one of the twins asked if it was worth it. What did he mean? Kaelen asked. All of this. The attention. The questions. The way people looked at them now. Was making Genevieve uncomfortable worth making them uncomfortable too? Kaelen didn't have a good answer. He didn't know. At least that was honest, the boy offered. Then he went to his room and closed the door. Kaelen sat on the couch and stared at the ceiling. Wondered if he'd made the right choice. Wondered if there had been a right choice at all. Wondered if revenge was supposed to feel this empty. His mother came over the next day. She brought groceries and disapproval. Didn't speak at first. Just unpacked food and put things away with more force than necessary. Finally, Kaelen asked what was wrong. He knew what was wrong, she countered. He didn't, he insisted. She stopped putting away cans and looked at him. The boys were struggling. He knew. What was he going to do about it? He didn't know. Not knowing wasn't good enough, she told him firmly. It was all he had, he admitted. His mother sighed. Sat down at the table. Revenge wasn't supposed to hurt the people you loved. It wasn't revenge, Kaelen protested. It looked like revenge, she observed. It was justice, he corrected. What was the difference? She asked. Kaelen didn't answer. Because he wasn't sure there was one anymore. His mother stood. Told him she loved him. Told him she loved the boys more. Then she left without saying goodbye. Kaelen sat alone in the kitchen. Listened to the house settle around him. Heard one of the twins laughing upstairs at something on his phone. The sound felt fragile. Like it could break at any moment. Genevieve stopped going out. Not officially. She didn't announce a retreat or a sabbatical. She just stopped appearing. Stopped attending events. Stopped posting online. Stopped performing the version of herself she'd built after the divorce. People noticed. Then they stopped noticing. That was worse. Being forgotten was worse than being hated. She thought about calling Kaelen. Picked up her phone a dozen times. Never dialed. What would she even say? That she was sorry? She wasn't. Not fully. She still believed he'd wasted her time. Still believed the marriage had been built on omissions. Still believed she'd had a right to be angry. But she hadn't had a right to be cruel. That part was harder to justify now. She tried once. Late at night. After too much wine. Drafted a message. Read it. Deleted it. Rewrote it. Deleted it again. Finally gave up. Apologies didn't undo damage. They just made the person apologizing feel better. And Genevieve didn't deserve to feel better yet. 3 months later, things settled. Not resolved. Just settled. The articles stopped. The questions faded. People moved on to newer scandals. The twins went back to being mostly invisible. Still recognized occasionally. Still asked questions sometimes. But the intensity faded. They learned to deflect. To smile politely. To say nothing in ways that ended conversations. One started playing basketball again. The other joined a coding club. They didn't talk about the brunch much. It lived in the past where uncomfortable things belonged. Kaelen started dating someone. A teacher. Quiet. Kind. Someone who knew about the boys before the first date. She didn't ask about Genevieve. Didn't need the story explained. Just accepted that the past was complicated and moved forward anyway. Kaelen appreciated that more than he could say. Genevieve took a job in a different city. Smaller. Quieter. The kind of place where people didn't care about social politics or galas or who humiliated whom 3 years ago. She rented an apartment with a view of nothing special. Worked regular hours. Went home. Cooked dinner. Watched television. It was boring. It was peaceful. She hated it at first. Then she didn't. One day, she saw Kaelen's name in an article. Something about a business award. A community initiative. There was a photo. Him. The boys. The woman he was seeing. They looked happy. Not perfect. Just content. Genevieve closed the article. Didn't read the rest. She thought about texting him. just to say congratulations. Or maybe sorry. Or maybe nothing at all. She didn't. Because some distances were better left alone. She went for a walk instead. The neighborhood was quiet. Trees lined the streets. A dog barked somewhere. A neighbor waved. Genevieve waved back. She didn't know the neighbor's name. Didn't know anyone's name here. And that was fine. Anonymity felt like mercy. She walked for an hour. When she got home, her phone was ringing. A number she didn't recognize. She answered. Was this Genevieve MacQuoid? The voice asked. Yes. They were calling about a position. Something she'd applied for months ago and forgotten about. They wanted to interview her. Genevieve agreed. Then hung up and sat down. Stared at her hands. They weren't shaking anymore. She didn't know when that had stopped. But it had. Kaelen never celebrated what happened. Never felt victorious. Never told the story like it was a win. Because it wasn't. Bringing his sons into public view cost him more than Genevieve ever understood. He had protected them for years because he didn't want the world touching them. Now the world knew they existed. That was the price. But they were still here. Still his. Still whole. And Genevieve was gone. Not destroyed. Not ruined. Just elsewhere. Living a smaller life that didn't include him. That felt like enough. Not justice. Not revenge. Just resolution. The kind that didn't need applause. One night, one of the twins asked if Kaelen ever regretted it. What did he mean? The brunch. The exposure. All of it. Kaelen thought about it. Sometimes, he admitted. Would he do it again? He didn't know. The boy nodded like that made sense. Then told him he was glad Kaelen did it anyway. Why? Because hiding felt worse than being seen. Even when being seen was hard. Kaelen didn't respond. Just put his arm around his son and left it there. The other twin walked in. What were they talking about? Nothing important. The first one deflected. The second didn't believe him but didn't push. They sat together in the living room. Watched a movie none of them paid attention to. Kaelen's phone buzzed. A message from the woman he was seeing. Just checking in. Asking if he was okay. He was. Good. He almost told her he loved her. Didn't. Too soon. But he thought it. And that felt like progress. Genevieve never apologized publicly. Never admitted she'd lied. Never tried to reclaim the narrative. She simply faded from relevance. Carrying a story no one wanted to hear anymore. People saw her sometimes. At coffee shops. Grocery stores. Walking alone. Some recognized her. Most didn't. She preferred the ones who didn't. One day, she ran into someone from her old life. A donor. Someone who used to take her calls. He looked uncomfortable when he saw her. She smiled. Hello. Hello, he offered back. How was she? Fine. Good, he replied. Then made an excuse and left. Genevieve stood in the produce section holding a bag of apples. Watching him go. She didn't feel angry. Or sad. Just tired. She put the apples back. Decided she wasn't hungry after all. Went home and sat in silence. Later, she'd think about what she could have done differently. What she should have done. How she could have been kinder. But those thoughts didn't change anything. They just made the quiet harder to sit in. So she stopped thinking them. Turned on music instead. Something old. Something she used to like before everything got complicated. And she let it play. The revenge wasn't clean. It wasn't satisfying. It didn't fix anything. It just exposed the truth. And the truth, once visible, didn't need defending. It stood on its own. Heavy. Uncomfortable. Unavoidable. Kaelen carried it. Genevieve carried it. The boys carried it. All of them changed by it. None of them free from it. But no longer trapped inside someone else's version of events. That was the only victory that mattered. Not winning. Just reclaiming the story. And letting the consequences fall where they belonged. Some people lose because they were beaten. Others lose because they were believed. And when belief runs out, so does everything else. This was Revenge Chronicles, and this was never about justice. It was about making the truth inconvenient for the wrong person. And once inconvenience turned into isolation, the rest took care of itself. No arguments. No apologies. No reconciliation. Just distance. And distance, when earned, lasts longer than any revenge ever could.